sweet one body. So, it's another one, yeah. It's a full strand, yeah. Oh, it's another one, yeah.
Hello and welcome to Green Diamond Boxing, powered by iBoxingHub. My name's Aiysha, and just before we get started, quick shout out to our sponsors D-Rock. Please check out the clothing on their website and add promo code iBoxingHub24 for 40% discount on all their clothing. So today I'm continuing with getting to know the iBoxingHub family series, and today I've got one of my other iBoxingHub brothers, Abbas Younas. Assalamu alaikum, welcome, how are you?
Welcome, son. Thank you for having me on. I was saying it before, it feels weird being on this side, being on the right, because I'm so used to being where you are. So, yeah, I'm interested. I don't know what there is going to be too much about me, but yeah, let's get on with it. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I've got loads of questions. So I just want to start really from the beginning. Talk to me about where you were born and brought up, about, your childhood, brothers and sisters, just a bit of background of yourself.
Yeah, so nobody will know where I'm from because it's such a small town compared to you guys being in London. But basically, I was born in Burnley, brought up in a small town called Nelson, about 15 minutes away. Really traditional Pakistani household, two other brothers, and yeah, we grew up. The first thing we always did was we grew up into a world of wrestling. Like you see it in the group chat how we are, but yeah, that was literally it was three brothers always beating each other up. And if we weren't beating each other up, we were either beating up pillows, doing wrestling moves and stuff. So me and one of my brothers were about 2 years gap in terms of age. So we literally grew up right next to each other. So we were always fighting with each other. My mum did get sick of it at some points. We have a ladder at home. Sometimes we climb the ladder, try to jump off it. So super early memories, or honestly, just growing up and just fighting with each other as much as we could without hurting each other. I nearly did choke my brother out. So I'm glad my mum came in when she did. I'm probably about 7 or 8. I just put him in a choke and I had no clue what I was doing. And I nearly choked him out. And luckily she walked in just that split second. But yeah, the super earliest memories that I can probably remember is growing up constantly watching any sports, but it was wrestling. That was the thing that always had us all pulled in together.
Right, so that makes a bit more sense now. Obviously, you've got two brothers always fighting, like play fighting and stuff, and that's probably how you got into wrestling in the first place. I guess that's what you liked.
Yeah, I think some of the things we'd know is obviously it used to come on super late in America, so it was like it was recorded. Either my uncle would record it or one of our friends would record it. Then we'd come back after school on that Monday, all of us just sitting there watching it, and especially some of the guys that would know, there used to be this Sky Sports box office theme song that would run, so it just played straight after, and it was just like that's really my childhood. Wrestling continuously all the way through until the point where my mum just got so sick of it. Yeah.
So what did you really like about wrestling though? What was it that drew you in to continue watching it, like getting really excited about it? What was it?
Do you know what? It sounds so weird to say, but like, I don't know. It was just something that was always in front of us. So it was like that first thing that was put in front of you. And then back then, obviously being in a group of guys in primary school, everyone was watching it as well. So it was just the super cool thing to be a part of. You'd come into school the weekend like, did you guys watch SmackDown? Did you guys watch Raw and stuff? It was just that was our point of conversation. There was other sports like cricket and football as well, so we were really stuck into sports. But yeah, it was just that. And then you had like trading cards that would come out, so all of us were buying certain cards. There might have been a thing with the women as well. Growing up, seeing them, and then my mum confiscating the cards when she realized what these women really look like, and we were like, okay, we're in trouble with that. But yeah, it was just something that genuinely, when I say you were born into it, you were
Yeah.
kind of born into it when it came to our family, because it was the first earliest memory of sports, and then it was cricket, football, and then yeah, like we are right now, we're just obsessed with sport. But we were so born into that that we couldn't get out of it, and we're still stuck in it now.
Wow. So say, for example, if you were a wrestler,
Oh,
would you if you were going to have a ring name, what kind of ring name do you think you would have if you were a wrestler?
so I don't want to be on a stereotype, but I'd want to do like the Brown Bruiser.
Okay.
Just because why not? Like, I'd probably have to do something just to play on the fact that I'm Asian, but I think, yeah, it'd be something funny to do with that, but I will never get into a wrestling ring. I tried it once.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I was at uni and I did a project on like wrestling and stuff. I got the
Mhm.
chance to go to the top rope, jump off it, and I was like, it's such good fun. Like there's a thrill to getting onto the top rope and jumping off, but it's actually super painful. Like I don't think a lot of people realize. They say it's fake. I'm telling you now, jump off the rope, you'll hurt yourself a bit. But I'm going with the Brown Bruiser, just and that's because I thought of that from the top of my head.
Wow. Guys watching, if you think of any better names for Abbas,
Yeah, please do. Let me know.
put it in the chat. Let's see what we come up with. Burnley Boy.
Yes, and
Yeah. Come up with some different names for him. Let's see what we can get by the end of the show. So yeah, that's really great that obviously you loved wrestling when you were younger. I guess it's one of those things that just reminds you of your childhood as well, which is why there's this kind of like nostalgic, aspect to it. So why you kind of still holding on to it a bit now, I guess. But moving on to, for me, which would be a proper sport, and no disrespect to your wrestling, but obviously I would see that more as a pantomime than a sport. How did you get into boxing then after wrestling?
the boring answer would probably
Hmm.
be Amir Khan, if
Okay,
I'm being very honest, because at
makes
the end of
sense.
the day, there wasn't growing up anybody that I knew that was Asian into boxing, and then
Mhm.
factoring he's from Bolton, so it's not too far away from me. So seeing him at the Olympics and then doing what he did, and then being that age that I probably was about 9 or 10. So it's like, oh, there's this Asian guy who's done this, and then you're seeing him paraded. So that was probably that first intro into boxing. And then following him on ITV when he would fight. So again, because we were so young, because he would fight so early, we'd be able to watch it. As his career progressed, we were like, okay, he's fighting a bit later. We'd have to sneak and be able to watch the fight. But funny enough, the first fight or first two guys I remember getting into the ring, I'm guessing it was on ITV because it would have been for free,
Mhm.
was Audley Harrison and Danny Williams. Now the
Okay.
guys in the chat will remember that. I don't know what it was. Was it a prize fighter event, just a normal fight? But for some reason, when I turned on British boxing, them two guys were always there. So that's like the first two guys I remember from a rivalry point of view. But the
Mhm.
first entry point, 100% was Amir Khan.
Wow. Okay. And after that, you were kind of hooked on it. You were just like watching it religiously after that, or was it like in and out a bit of the sport?
It was more I was hooked to watching his fights
Yeah.
and then following some of the bigger guys and stuff like that where I could do. But it did become for a large period just following as much as I could do of his career. And then I started getting obsessed with sports.
Hmm.
Like it's a my mum will say this. Actually, not in my mum, my friends will say, you have a form of sports, which is true. I don't like missing live TV. Like it could be at 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I'll find a way to watch it because I can't do that thing that other people can where they'll sleep and watch it in the morning. I've never done that. Like there's not every event that I watch is live. If I've missed it, I'm not
Hmm.
watching it the next day. But yeah, so it became a thing of watching him and progress as
Okay.
much and then keeping up with the sport whilst I could as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great because obviously right now are you in your early 30s, late 20s?
Late 20s, don't say 30s. We don't talk about that number.
Okay.
We don't talk about
Okay.
that number yet.
Late 20s. How much longer do you think you can keep that up for, like watching it at the time that is playing? I
I,
mean,
as honestly, I know this sounds as long as I'm breathing, I'm not
Yeah.
missing sports. I've always said this. Like my mum said, "Oh, what happens if you have kids?" I go,
Yeah.
you lot talk about night feeds. I'm gonna love the night feeds because I can be like, hold this thing there on the side. I'm just watching something as well, so it's gonna be easy for me. Like I have
Yeah.
no worries about night feeds and parenting whenever that happens because I stay up till 5 in the morning anyway, so it's fine.
All right. Well, let's see how things go. Like after you get married and have kids, and
Oh,
see
if you spoke to my mum, that'll be done now. But yeah.
how things go for you. If you can still watch all of boxing at like 2 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to ask you about now
Mm,
is obviously you were really into sports, watching it, and there's a lot of people that do that and watch their sports, but you took it one step further and you started doing podcasts.
mm.
So how did you get into that? Like calf kick sports, is that one of the ones that you started off with?
Yeah, so I do that on the side. That was some Ray actually introduced me to them guys, but in terms of just getting into sports, the short answer was I wasn't the best at sports,
Hmm.
but I was genuinely like when I say obsessed, I was obsessed with sports. I remember Fernando Torres signed for Chelsea. This was back in the day where there wasn't a lot of Twitter, there was Facebook, and I was the first person. I was like looking at flights from Liverpool to Chelsea, docking when he's moving and stuff, and putting it on Facebook. So I was always obsessed with that. And I know a lot of people say they don't know what they want to do when they
Hmm.
get older. I promise you, I knew when I was 30, 12, 13, I'm going to be in the media.
Really?
I still remember, yeah, 100%. I remember when I was 15, we did a school mock interview, and at the time, newspapers were huge. And I said, yeah, by 25, 26, I promise you I'm going to be doing media work. I promise you I'm going to be doing that.
Wow.
And it's quite scary to say that, considering our space at that time. The only person I could say that was Asian and working in any sports media was this guy called Manish, who used to cover the football league show. So
Mm.
there wasn't nobody like myself or yourself or anybody. So
Yeah.
I always just knew it. And then the route was, okay, I don't know anybody that's doing it.
Yeah.
Like, for example, my brother now, he comes to me to boxing events because he has the route through myself, so he can do that. He doesn't have to go to university. My only thing was, okay, I'll do GCSE media. I'll go and do A-level media. Then I'll do journalism at university. I had to take that traditional route
Mm.
before I realized, okay, there's other avenues that you can do that doesn't require university. But yeah, no, honestly, I just always knew whether it took me 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was, there was no way I wasn't going to do it. And credit to my parents as well. I'll give them that. They allowed me to do that. They still
Hmm.
want to, they never, once I finished university, they were like, okay, carry on doing what you're doing, but you still have to get a job. So
Yeah.
they appreciated the side of me trying to do that, and they still do. Even though sometimes my mum will say, "You're going to Birmingham. It's 2.5 hours. It's you're going to be back at 2 o'clock at night, whatever." So she'll still give me that little lecture before I go, but she won't ever stop me. So they
Oh,
appreciated that and they understood that and they got that. But they also said you still have to make some money as well at the same time. So yeah, I respect that because there's a lot of families that will turn around and say, "Oh,
yeah.
when you go to uni, do the traditional career path for Asian people." But my mum
Yeah.
was like, "No, you can do it, which is fine, but understand at the same time, don't go overly broke doing it
Hmm.
and bring in an income," which was fine. But yeah, I was always obsessed with sports. I knew what I was going to do, and I'm not there like at all, but I just carry on.
Wow. So that's cool though. So did you do journalism at uni then? Have you? Is that what you did?
I did sports journalism at Leeds Uni. So
Okay.
from there, came out, I was like, what am I meant to do now? And then that's where shout out to Andrew as well. Like he will say this, we joined BComs. I joined a program called BComs. From there, it just escalated where we built the networks. That's how I knew Andrew from Stay Weighed In, and we grouped together. And then yeah, the rest is that I guess you call it a domino effect where
Yeah.
because of the connections we joined with you guys, started doing a few things outside of boxing. And yeah, that's the best way to explain it. It's just one of them things that just fell into pieces, but it fell because I knew it was going to fall, if that makes sense. I didn't
Yeah.
know how, but I knew
Mm.
that there's no way you can't work hard enough to not get to the position you need to go to. And trust
Yeah.
me, when I was in primary and high school, the teachers were worried about me in the sense that I was always smart.
Mhm.
I'm not going to bring myself, but I could ace exams like that. The problem was my behavior was so bad. And I always
Really?
said this, my behavior was awful up till year 9. And the reason was I just could get into fights. I could get my way because I was so clever in what I was doing and I knew I could pass classes and stuff. I was like, I can mess about and it doesn't matter. And
Right.
my mum understood that, okay, he's gonna get detentions, but she had to think the moment you get excluded, you were gonna have problems then. So I always had that fear that do not get excluded, push the limits as much as you can. But I think it got to year 9 where my teacher sat me down and she goes, okay, you're in set 2 for English. Your
Mhm.
friends moved up to set 1, but you're not moving up because your behavior needs to get better. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to sort that out. So that's what it was. I think year 9 in high school was probably the biggest turning point because it was like, oh, your
Mhm.
GCSEs are doing, and you can't sit. And no disrespect to certain people that were in the class, but I was smarter than them. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I'm being stuck here. I'm doing this to myself. So yeah, from
Yeah.
year 9 onwards, I sorted my behavior out, and that was it. From there, I was like, I'm locked in now. I'm gonna do what I need to do.
So why do you think that you weren't like your behavior was bad at the beginning? Was it boredom? Was it like just
Probably
trying to
both.
push the limits? What was it?
It was a bit of both. I
Yeah.
think I would get bored really quickly because I was like, I've done this. Like, what do I need to do now? So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, let me just annoy the teacher. And at the same time, I had certain teachers that supported me because I had behavior support. They
Mhm.
supported me in the sense to say that, okay, let him get away with certain things. So if he's got problems, take him out of the class, but let him join with us. By the time they would take me out of the class, the work that I've done is completed. So I'm
Right.
like, oh, I've got 15 minutes to not do anything. So, oh, fine, I'll go with the teacher. I can go into PE class. I can go hang around with that teacher, and it was fine. So I think that was it. But I think year 9 probably becomes that turning point. And also,
Mm.
I had a change of friendship group as well, who,
Right.
when I looked at them, they were a lot more sportier in terms of just playing sports, but also actually achieving well academically as well. So it's
Yeah.
just that finding that blend. And in the area that I'm in, honestly, you can go either one way or the other. And I'll say this, that the group of friends I've got, we've been together since year 8, year 9, and we've all stuck together and we all are in our own fields, whether that's being a teacher, whether it's one of my friends just became, I don't know what it's called. I think it's an audiologist. I don't know what it's called. The eye doctor for Specsavers and stuff like that. He just got his stuff done there. One of my mates is a pharmacist who's doing what he's doing. So we all succeeded, but I think it was we just knew that okay, don't take the mick too much once they got to a certain level,
Mhm. Do
and
you
that was
have any
it.
advice then for like kids who do mess about? So
Hmm.
basically, you were really intelligent. You aced the work that you needed to do, but you were still having like issues at school in terms of your behavior. So then there's probably a lot of kids like that as
Yeah,
well. Do you have any advice for them? Like, what would you say to them if they're in that situation now?
I think it's weird because I know this is going to sound horrible, but you kind of have to help yourself before and realize that. Like I said, my realization point was year 9
Mm,
when I realized I'm sitting in a class with people that I'm way smarter than, but I'm stuck here because of my behavior. So I think you kind of have to grow up a little bit more yourself in high school than
mhm,
probably some people think, oh, you don't have to, but
yeah,
also just have certain teachers around you. I think that's probably one of the things. I think there's got to be teachers that realize, okay, this student is a good student
mm,
where they need to be, and we need to push them in environments or put them in environments where they are happy in terms of education, but also that friendship group. Because for me, that friendship group was kind of pushed on me a little bit, but it
yeah.
was probably the best thing. Because outside of that, I'll be honest, I was year 7 and 8. I was a horrible student in terms of what I was doing outside of school and
Mhm.
everything in general.
Yeah, no, that is really good advice, I think. And I think there's a lot of people that obviously go through things like that, and there might be lots of different things that feed into why they do that. So it could be things at home, could be outside, it
Yeah,
could
for
be
sure.
like you said, boredom or things like that. So maybe it just needs the advice also needs to be tailored slightly to the different individuals. So yeah, really good advice there for us. Thank you. So obviously the first time you and me met in person, we went to the Muslim Boxing Awards.
Yeah.
What did you think about that event? And do you think that we should have similar things like that going forward?
In terms of going forward, yeah, for sure. I think it needs to be one of them things that's a yearly basis type of thing.
Right.
But I think for now, like I think there's a lot of eyes on Muslim boxers anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think yeah, these events just help push it to that next level. Um, but yeah, I think just as an event itself, it was pretty well done as a first off thing. I think what would have helped is probably more of the guys that were there or who were meant to be there were also there. But you see a lot of Muslim fighters just in general going in the communities, helping communities where they can do. But yeah, it's good to see that a light has been brought on to Muslim boxers. But I will say this, within the South Asian community, I don't think we do directly enough. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I've got a lot of respect for the black community because when you look at it, you've got Black History Month that's put down you and for the right reasons. And it also puts a light on people. When you look at South Asian Month, you wouldn't even know when it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an issue in ourselves, like whether that's content creators, whether it's fighters or anybody. I don't think we do enough within our own communities to really push that forward. And I think there's also people in the background that are higher ups that maybe don't take us serious enough.
Yeah.
Whether that's like I said in sports, like the whole thing is, oh well, Asian people can't really play football or get to that level because their diet's not the best or they prefer to play cricket.
Mm-hmm.
What people don't realize is the culture in football will never adhere to us
Mm-hmm.
because you'll go play football at a lower level and then it's like, right, we're going to a pub. And if you're that one Asian person, that's probably you're gonna feel a bit weirded out by it to start off with, because rightly so, you've never gone to a pub anyway. So I think that's probably a little bit of an issue, but I think us as a community need to push that out, and I think awards shows like that really do help out as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But obviously, it's important to have that distinguish between Asians and
Yeah,
Muslims
Muslims,
because
yeah, definitely.
they're different. And they're like in terms of when you're talking about footballers, and there aren't many South Asian footballers, are there? But then we're also talking about like Hindus and Sikhs and other
Yeah,
South Asians. So why do you think that is then? Because we're not just talking about Muslims here.
this is the thing, and it sounds bad to say. When you look at one of us, I feel like a lot of people just think we're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could see a brown person and say, "Oh, he's Pakistani," or "He's Muslim," or "He's Hindu," but you're all the same. Again, I'm saying my own views on this, so it could be a bit out there. I feel like people just look at it and think, "Oh, you're all the same as each other."
Yeah.
So you all got the same way of thinking, you all do the same thing, you've all got the same diet, you don't take yourself seriously. And I think, to be fair, that's where boxing is probably at the forefront, where they do give opportunities to people like us. Because if you look, we've got a lot of South Asian, not world champions, but getting there. As I said at the start, Amir Khan was that first person that I looked at. I was like, oh, cool, he is a person who is of my color, my faith, etc., and he's doing well, and he set that benchmark. Prior to that, there were other people as well. So I think it's just one of them things where, unfortunately, we're just all put in the same bracket when the reality is that we're not. At the
Mm,
same time, I don't know if we can we do enough realistically to push ourselves as well.
okay.
Because when it comes to other sports, I will say this, you kind of, I always say with professional athletes, people just see it when they turn pro.
Mhm.
15 years prior to that, they've probably been working as hard to get into that position. So, like a boxer's career, a footballer's career, you think it might be 15 years. The reality is it's probably 25 to 30 years. So, I think we might need to be a bit more strict on ourselves, but it's difficult. It's super difficult in certain sports where you are a big minority,
Yeah.
and I think football is definitely one of them. Cricket, we've got there where Pakistani players or South Asian players play for England, so we're
Mhm.
represented there.
Yeah.
Boxing, we're represented as well, but I think football is the only one where realistically, I don't see that happening. But I do think from a sports media side of things, there's more content creators that
Mm.
represent South Asians.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess I just don't quite understand why there aren't these South Asian players, because when you're talking about boxers, a lot of boxers, they have to be disciplined. And we do well in terms of Muslim boxers, because Muslims, if you are going by the faith, you're waking up really early to pray in the morning, your fajr, you don't drink alcohol, you don't smoke, you don't go out to nightclubs, that kind of thing. So you have a disciplined lifestyle as it is, just living as a Muslim. So therefore you can also do that as like becoming a professional boxer. And I think that also someone said to me that there was a coach who actually likes to coach Muslim boxers because they're already disciplined in the way that they wake up and the way they live their lifestyle. So if they can do that and become a professional boxer, why aren't we getting the same people coming through for other sports like football?
So the only thing I could probably say is you don't get to pick if you can be a professional footballer, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Right.
There'll be a point where the academy coach will come in and say, right, it's time to make cuts.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, they can cut you, and they don't really give an explanation why they cut you.
Okay.
And so that's the only thing I'd probably say on that. Like the barrier to get into professional football as a South Asian, regardless of faith, is a lot more harder than it is for other sports, because at the end of it, as a boxer, it's you as an individual with a team and you just progressing through the ranks. And then you need someone, I guess, to sign you at one point. But even if you're not signed, you'll make enough noise to be able to do that. When it comes to football, if you're cut at 16, 17 continuously, if that's the cycle, we can only progress to a certain point when it
Mm.
comes to football itself. So I think that's an issue. And that's where, as people say, and there's been documentaries, there may well be a strong underlying tone of racism in football.
Yeah. I mean, we know that there is,
Yeah,
racism in football, and we see it every single time. We've got like black players that miss goals, and
yeah.
you see the racism coming out very clearly. So that is very true. Really, really interesting, actually, and I'd really like to probably understand that a bit more and kind of figure out how we can overcome that, because we do have a lot of black players. We've got a lot of black Muslim players as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
So, what's happening with the South Asian footballers and how can we kind of overcome those barriers? I think that's really an interesting topic. And I wonder whether you've got any ideas about overcoming those barriers.
Realistically, it's hard for me to say because I'm not in that world. I never
Mm,
played at that particular world. When I was younger, I played for a team, but it was just recreationally fun with my friends and stuff like that. So I couldn't realistically do anything there because it's just not anything that I have the opportunity to do with or anything like that. In terms of
yeah.
just media space, it's more of a case of the way I look at it is when I was younger, all I wanted to do was do it for myself. Once
Mhm.
I got into this, it was like, okay, I don't, as much as I want to do it for myself, let me get my brother on. Let me make it easier for my cousin who now works at BBC Sport, just to broaden that out there as well. So I think it's more of a case of if there is coaches out there that has a level of influence they can do at an academy level to bring these players up, then great. But unfortunately, I don't have the answer for that one because I'm not in that space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But a really interesting thing to think about, though. So I wanted to talk to you about your interviews that you've been doing. So you've
Okay.
been with iBoxingHub for a little while. You've been going to press conferences, going to fight weeks. You've interviewed quite a few boxers, promoters, different people in the boxing world. Talk to me about how that experience has been for you, and have you enjoyed it? How's it going?
So the first interview I did, I remember we did it with, I think it was Jack Cattrall, and I was like,
Hmm.
okay. I I always said I don't know why I thought I want to do 10-minute interviews. I want to do 10-minute interviews. Stood there, asked probably about 3 to 4 questions, and afterwards I froze. I was like, I don't know where to go from here. I'm like, I'm stuck. And then the audio was bad. Same with Eddie. I was like, I did a few questions. The audio came out bad, and I was like, oh well, this is a disaster. I know where I belong, and it's definitely not doing interviews. But I think as everything's progressed, you've become more comfortable doing it naturally. Um, and then you learn certain tricks and tips. Or okay, that works with that particular fighter. With Eddie now, as much as I'll do the interviews, I want to start doing a bit more fun content with him. So it's just a case of necessarily pushing the boundaries with a bit of fun to it. So yeah, I think it's one of them things you learn on the job,
Mm,
and I think when they say like you're your own worst critic, I'm 100% that. Before I send anything off to Trey to put
yeah,
up, I'm watching it back literally like 2 to 3 times, making sure the audio is perfect. I've just got that thing about wanting to make sure everything is perfect. But I think now I've just realized, look, just enjoy it.
yeah,
Don't overthink on the questions. Go from the responses that they're giving you, and then go from there. And then if the interview is 2 minutes, it's 2 minutes. If the interview feels like it can go on for 6, 7 minutes, that's fine. You don't need to overthink of the time, because I think that's probably the one thing I did right at the start. I overthought about the length of an interview, and then I'm just kind of stuck if they give me like a 20-second answer and I don't know where to go from there. But the
yeah,
experience itself has been such good fun. Like, considering, I always say, considering where I'm from and then the people I'm now speaking to, it's a bit crazy. And I don't feel out of place like I did at the start. But now I'm like, if I turn up to that particular place, I'm there for a particular reason. And I've got just as much right to be able to get the content that someone else has who might have been there for 10 years, 15 years, or whatever the case is. Do I know that's going to happen? Not necessarily. I know that the person who's got the bigger following, unfortunately, will get that first interview, which we both know is frustrating. But it's not a case of, oh, I can't believe it, or I'm worried that I'm not going to get it. I'm just like, okay, I'll push my way through eventually and get that interview. But yeah, the experience has been good, but the first two interviews were torturous because the audio was so bad, and yeah, I just fumbled a little bit at the start as well.
yeah. I mean, that's understandable, though, isn't it? And I think it happens to all of us. I had issues with the sound and cameras and stuff like that. It's bound to happen when you first start something. But yeah, I think, obviously everyone's been saying how great you've been doing on all your interviews as well. But what's been your best interview so far? The one that you've done?
Do you know what's funny? I'll say this. My best interview is probably the one with Specs. So,
Okay.
and the reason is we had nothing planned. Zero was planned. No questions answered. I just stood there and I
Mhm.
was like, this is Specs. What am I meant to interview him on? So I just went there. I got Specs. Should we do
Mhm.
an interview? And he went, yeah, let's do it. And the first thing I asked him was, I was like, how old are you? And he
Mhm.
goes, I might be 28, I might be 40. And I was like, okay, he's gonna do that vibe. I'm gonna bounce off it. Then we
Yeah.
start talking about the fact that I support Burnley, or I'm from Burnley. And we had a bit of fun with it. And I think it was one of them where it was so unprepared and
Mhm.
so chaotic, but it just worked because I was able to bounce off his energy. I
Yeah.
love doing the stuff with Eddie because he's one of them promoters that he's mad busy. Like, I can't, it's crazy how busy he is, but
Yeah.
he will do his best to give as much time as he can to everybody there. So I've got a lot of respect for that. But yeah, the most fun interviews I 100% do is at the Misfits events.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I need to ask you about that as well, because obviously you're our resident expert of Misfits. And it's something that you really, really enjoy. So I want
Yeah.
to ask you, because there's a lot of, boxing fans that aren't happy about Misfits, that think that it ruins the sport of boxing. Talk to me about why you like Misfits so much. And if you had to give an argument to why boxing fans should be on board with Misfits, what would your argument be?
The reason I like it, it's I grew up watching these guys, or some of these guys anyway. Um, so it's always like I always say, like with KSI was basically every 12, 13-year-old boy's childhood, and then growing up still. Like there's not a single person in our high school that did not know who KSI was. There wasn't a
Wow.
single person who didn't come in the next day and say, did you see the KSI video? Every single person spoke about him.
Hmm.
So I always said that's the interview. Once I get the interview, I promise
Yeah.
you I might retire from my boxing club. If I get that interview, I might genuinely retire. But yeah, so because we grew up kind of with the main guys, then outside of it is a bit of chaotic fun.
Mm.
But and that differs. It allows people just to sit back for a few hours and not overly think about a technical fight for 12 rounds and then how's it scored. Just you can just enjoy something without overcomplicating it. But in terms of just for boxing fans, if you want to enjoy it, the one thing I will say is compared to what it was at the start, there's a lot of guys now that take it seriously.
Yeah.
They will put themselves to actual training camps compared to probably in the past before. And I think you see that some of the fights are actually a bit more technical than
Mhm.
people want to take it for granted. And
Right.
yes, it's misfits. Misfits literally means they are misfits. Like they are going to be awkward, they are going to be weird, but that's fine. If you want to sit down and watch it, fine. If you want to criticize the fact that they're getting more eyes to traditional boxing, are you watching every single fight from the undercard? Because when I went to the Prime card in Manchester last year, I
Mhm.
said to my brother, I couldn't believe it. These fans were queued for 5 p.m. Sorry, for the first fight, and the
Right.
arena was fully sold out before the main card started. You aren't doing that as boxing fans, so you can't criticize something
Mhm.
that is doing it.
Yeah.
Go do what you want to do as a boxing man, whether that's buying a pay-per-view, just watching it at home, going to a live show, do that and
Mhm.
just enjoy your piece, but appreciate what they're doing because they've got their lane. They're not competing with regular boxing. They don't want to compete with regular boxing,
Mm.
but don't criticize them, but then don't do what their fans are actually doing because all their fans are turning up. They're
Yeah.
paying whatever prices are the tickets. Some are a bit more expensive, but at the same time, some are a lot more affordable.
Yeah.
Yes, the inner ringside ones will be expensive, which is expected, but for the
Mhm.
majority, you as a family can go watch the fight. You can't do that with the big fights when it comes to traditional
Mm.
boxing because they price out the regular fan. So that's the thing I'll say. Like, enjoy it if you want to, but you can't criticize something for filling out a stadium or an arena or whatever it is when you are not tuning in until 9:30 at night just for the main event or co-main event yourself.
Mm. No, it's a good point, definitely. So in terms of boxing,
Hmm.
professional boxing, who would you say is your boxing hero?
I'd say Khan. If you want me
Okay.
to, that's it. Yeah, I would probably have to say Amir Khan is because without him, I don't think there's other Asian boxers in the sport, but also just that natural first point of enjoyment.
Yeah.
Who's the greatest boxer I'll ever watch? That's Canelo Alvarez.
Right.
Canelo Alvarez is the greatest ever for me personally.
So give me a question that you would ask if you were to interview Amir Khan and Canelo. Give me a question for each person. What would
Oh
you
my
want to
God.
ask them?
I don't know where I'd start. Like that's so hard to do. I honestly with Khan, I'd probably talk about his legacy.
Yeah.
Uh, I'd want to do it where it's like a bunch of questions, but basically they'll form around his legacy in boxing
Mm-hmm.
and what he genuinely believes that is, and how he set the blueprint for other people following in his footsteps and stuff like that. With Canelo Alvarez, see, this is the bit where I want to have a bit of fun with fighters whilst also doing. I don't know what question
Mm-hmm.
I would be able to ask Canelo Alvarez. There is one thing I want to do for content. I want to do what's known as a swear off with him. So I would
Okay.
learn swearing in Spanish. He can swear to me in English, and we just go back and forth, and then we can just leave it at
Yeah,
that. Because
I've seen him doing one of those before,
that's
actually.
what
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah, I want to do a swear off with Canelo Alvarez because it's like I said, there's the bridge between being serious but also having fun, and I
Yeah.
want to be able to do that. But we can't probably be about that with
Mm-hmm.
Canelo. I couldn't tell you a question, but I could tell you exactly the piece of content that is right in my mind. I'd be able to break it down, put it on a piece of paper, how I want to get it sorted, and get that done somehow.
Yeah. And you'd be okay to show that to your family afterwards.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. I would post it every single day on Instagram and everywhere for everyone
Yeah.
to see.
Wow, I could not do that. Like, if I had something like that and had like a swearing contest with someone, I wouldn't share that with like my parents or my family.
Oh no, no,
There's no,
my mum would think, what's wrong with you? Like she was looking like, really, what's wrong with you? What are you proud of? Like, I don't understand it. But I still show him because it's Canelo Alvarez.
yeah, of course.
But she wouldn't understand it. There's absolutely no way she would
Yeah.
understand. more likely understand the American stuff
Yeah, no,
rather than
absolutely.
the Alvarez stuff.
Yeah.
But that would be one of my most proudest things, just to have him say a certain swear to me, and I'm like, it's fine, I'm all right with that. You can call me that. It's okay.
Right. So we're actually approaching the end of the year, obviously. Talk to me about 2025, one fight that you want to see happen in 2025.
I want to say it's Javante versus Shakur.
Okay. Yeah.
I probably would say out of all the fights,
Mm-hmm.
Canelo and David Benavidez is also there, and the reason I want that is basically all these Benavidez fanboys can finally be shut up, especially that old man. Oh, I hate that old man. That's like Canelo's biggest hater. I would like that just for
Yeah.
Canelo to shut all these people up about Benavidez, but the fight would probably be Shakur and Javante Davis from that side of things. From the influencer side, 100%, I want to see KSI versus Tommy Fury again,
Okay.
or KSI versus Jake Paul. But yeah, if you were to give me the one fight out of everything, is Javante Shakur, and Shakur
Wow.
would win.
Oh, really? Okay, you got a prediction. Great. Wow. So say for your KSI Tommy Fury one, then do you think KSI is going to beat him next time around?
He should have beat him the first time. Like they only for the integrity of the sport did they let a fake professional win. Like KSI beat Tommy Fury the first time round. But yeah, no, 100% KSI would beat him. I don't value Tommy Fury. I don't know what I can say positive, so I'm not going to say anything more
Yeah,
about that.
let's not say anything.
But
We like
yeah,
positivity on this show, so
yeah.
um,
So I'm just going to leave that one in there. But yeah, I'd expect KSI to win that. But yeah, my dream two fights are Shakur Javante. I hope that happens, and I kind of see Canelo and Benavidez happening in September.
wow. Okay, that would be amazing. Abbas, it's been amazing having this interview with you. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And thank you everyone for joining, commenting. Yeah, how can everyone follow your journey?
Instagram, Twitter, it's just literally my name with 3 underscores. And yeah, I think we normally try to do videos every Tuesday. Me and Ray, shout out to Ray. Without him, we don't have a podcast. But I just want to give a quick little shout out to 3 people. Andrew from our team. I
Yeah.
class him as a mentor personally because he's helped us a lot. Somebody else from BCom's called Leon. Leon, man, again, another exceptional person for bringing people in to media spaces from different backgrounds. And then finally, JD Dyer. JD works super hard, but I can send him a message and he'll respond instantly. Every event I'll see him, I won't approach him, he will come approach me, and I'm just like, you're approaching me, that's a sign of respect. So yeah, them 3 guys, super important, just naturally to what I've been able to get up to in life.
Well, big up to all of them and to you, Abbas, and thank you again for your time. Thank you everyone for joining and commenting, and we will see you again next week. Take care.
It's another band. All the Muslim calls now, whichever get up. I talk my card with a sweet one, please. Someone flicks me a back by it. So